has seen over 200 illegal routes closed. This is according to the Ministry of Interior and National Administration. Now, a multi-agency team comprising of the General Service Unit, which is the GSU, the Kenya Defence Forces, KDF, and General Duty Police that conducts routine surveillance along the border entry points established that illegal routes were used to smuggle forged documents and drugs into the country. In an effort to combat cross-border crimes along the western region and along the Kenya-Uganda border, a multi-agency team comprising of the General Service Unit, Kenya Defence Forces and General Duty Police that conducts routine surveillance regularly have managed to close down 200 illegal routes used to smuggle in forged documents and drugs, among other illegal consignments, into the country. Counterfeits and contrabands including sugar, maize, alcohol, ethanol and pharmaceutical drugs were also confiscated by border control authorities. In a bid to enhance border security, the government has constructed stop border posts supported by an upgrade of 45-kilometer Kitale and Swam Road for 4.9 billion shillings to facilitate integrated border management and foster legitimate trade routes in a bid to expose criminal elements sabotaging the security of both nations. The Kenya and Uganda governments have also initiated joint border commissioners meetings to deliberate and enhance cross-border cooperation in curbing small arms, illegal migration and natural resource-based conflicts among border communities.
Haitawezekana mwanakandarasi yoyote kupokea pesa za umma na kuchelewesha miradi ya serikali. Tutachukua hatua papo hapo. Hakuna kungojea.
At the same time, the government is intensifying efforts to complete the upgrading of the Swam border post into a modern one-stop border post to enhance border trade and movement of goods and people between Kenya and Uganda.
And therefore, trade between Kenya and Uganda is extremely crucial for the government and the people of Kenya because much of our regional trade is generated between in the business interactions between ourselves and our brothers and sisters from Uganda.
Once operational, the facility is expected to significantly reduce delays, cut costs and foster deeper integration between Kenya and Uganda, benefiting businesses and citizens on both sides of the border. Elsewhere, a fresh strike is looming in the health sector following a 14-day ultimatum issued by the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers KUKO to the government, citing delayed implementation of the return to work formula signed in September last year. Led by the national chairperson Peterson Washira, the officers also accused the Social Health Authority, which is SHA, of discrimination. They claim that the clinical officers cannot practice under the new health insurance model due to failure of the Social Health Authority board to recognize the health facilities registered by the Clinical Officers Council.
Health facilities across the country are headed for paralysis if the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers make good their threat of downing tools on Sunday, January 19th, 2025. Solidarity forever, solidarity forever. Among the key provisions of the return to work deal that are unimplemented include the negotiation of a comprehensive collective bargaining agreement, promotions and job reclassifications, confirmation of universal health coverage staff into permanent and pensionable terms, comprehensive medical cover for all clinical officers, and conversion of all short-term contractual employment for clinical officers into permanent and pensionable terms.
The ministry and the county governments have not fully implemented the return to work agreement, given that the deadline for implementation was the first day of September 2024. We have done numerous letters, they have refused to respond. And that is why we are here today to call them to account. And by that declare that we are calling for a strike in the next 14 days. All the clinic officers under the 47 counties under the Ministry of Health shall proceed on strike as from the midnight of 19th January 2024.
The officials further alleged that the Social Health Authority Board has refused to recognize health facilities and practitioners registered under the Clinical Officers Council.
The Social Health Authority with the help of the leadership of the ministry, is doing all it can be able to do to go against the tenets of the UHC. While the law provides that they are supposed to empanel and contract and allow clinic officers to pre-authorize, they have refused to do that. They have gone against the law.
This discrimination, therefore, hinders the practice of clinical officers and causes widespread suffering among Kenyans who are denied essential services provided by clinical officers. Many are forced to pay out of pocket for healthcare services despite being a registered member of the Social Health Authority.
Kenya Union of Clinical Officers Secretary General George Bore also lamented that clinical officers are being coerced to license their facilities with the Kenya Medical Practitioners Dentist Council to benefit from the Social Health Authority.
The specialist clinical officers are being compelled to use the KMPDC, that the Kenya Medical Practitioner and Dentist Council license number, from the medical officers for pre-authorization and practice that is both illegal and extortionate. We regard this action as forms of institutionalized corruption and self-interest that hinders the provision of accessible health services.
The contentious agreement was signed in July last year after the clinical officers went on strike for 99 days.
Still on the health front, the Ministry of Health has ruled out the potential outbreak of human metapneumovirus, which is the HMPV virus reported in China. In a statement on its social media platforms, the ministry confirmed that no case of patients with symptoms of the disease has been reported in the country's health facilities. Here is Joseph Wahungu with the details.
5 years after the devastating COVID-19 pandemic, a new respiratory virus outbreak in China, human metapneumovirus HMPV, has raised global concerns, especially for children and the elderly. HMPV, a virus that causes mild upper respiratory tract infection, was first identified in the Netherlands in 2001. The virus spreads through direct contact between people or when someone touches surfaces contaminated with it. Its symptoms for most people include cough, fever, and nasal congestion. In response to the situation in China, the Ministry of Health has, in a statement on X, reassured Kenyans that HMPV is not a new virus, since it has been documented in the past as a circulating pathogen that contributes to respiratory illnesses in the country. Additionally, the ministry has urged Kenyans to remain vigilant and observe basic public health practices. It further advises anyone experiencing unusual cases of severe respiratory illnesses to seek medical attention from the nearest health facility as soon as possible or call 719.
On the education front, the Kenya Publishers Association now says the distribution of grade 9 textbooks to public school is in the final stages. According to the association chairperson, Kiarie Kamau, the distribution is at 85% and is expected to be concluded on Monday next week. And as Timothy Kipnusu now reports, the association has warned parents and teachers against purchasing pirated books.
On the second day of the 2025 academic year, schools are pulling all stops to ensure transition of grade 9 learners, the challenges notwithstanding. From incomplete classrooms, scarcity of desks, and in some cases, textbooks. The Kenya Publishers Association has come out to clear the air on the grade 9 distribution.
That exercise of distributing the grade 9 books has been ongoing throughout December, and we can confidently say more than 85% of those textbooks are already in public primary schools. Speaking in Nairobi, the association chairperson Kiarie Kamau noted that some institutions were limiting themselves to books not approved by the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, KICD. What the KICD does is in a learning area, it approves a variety of books. You can find, let's say, in grade 3 mathematics, there are about 7 different textbooks approved. What schools are supposed to do, and they know, and most of them do that, is they constitute panels. The panels go through the books and select one that they will use. So we are again encouraging institutions not to limit themselves, but to to look at the variety that has been approved by the KICD.
The association at the same time warned parents and teachers not to abet piracy of textbooks.
This council here has been working with the Kenya Copyright Board as well as the Anti-Counterfeit Agency to fight this menace, and we encourage members of the press to also help us in fighting the menace. The DCI is also hot on the heels of all those pirates to ensure that pirated books, counterfeit books, do not find their way into institutions. We are conducting raids. You know, we have enlisted the services of investigators working very closely with the DCI. We identify channels where those books are being printed and distributed, and we are raiding.
All schools are expected to have received textbook by Monday, January 13, 2025.
In other news now, Billy Mwangi, one of the young Kenyans who were released by abductors, says he is thankful for the support showed by Kenyans in the push for his freedom. Meanwhile, the Inspector General of Police, Douglas Kanja, is expected to appear in court on Wednesday to explain the mysterious abductions in the country in a case filed by the Law Society of Kenya LSK and Busia Senator Okiya Omtata. The case is scheduled to kick off at exactly 11:30 a.m.
Following the denial by the police service of any involvement in the abduction of government critics, MPs allied to the former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua now want a commission of inquiry formed to investigate the abductions.
We are calling for the formation of a public commission of inquiry led by an independent body to investigate abductions, politicization of police, resurgence of criminal gangs, land grabbing and state capture.
We also appreciate the ICC quick response in opening the portal for reporting human rights abuses by the state actors and other collaborators in setting early stage of collating the data ready for the eventuality.
Sentiments echoed by the former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, who on his X page wrote, "We must get to the bottom of these gross human rights violations, identify and prosecute everyone involved in these abductions and extrajudicial killings, and ensure this will never happen again." The MPs also want the Commission of Inquiry to investigate increased cases of land grabbing, particularly in Kiambu and Nakuru counties.
We urge both the National Assembly and the Senate, and also all county assemblies across the nation to convene a special session during recess to discuss and conduct inquiries into these abductions.
In Homa Bay County, Area Woman Representative Joyce Bensouda also condemned the abduction of perceived government critics, calling on state agencies to find alternative approaches to address dissent.
Abduction is not a solution. We want to condemn this in the strongest terms possible. Whoever is doing it, whether it's a local person, a layman, the police, the DCI must take charge. The IG must be in control.
The 6 young critics abducted 2 weeks ago have since been released.
And once more, all eyes will be at the Milimani locals as we do anticipate the Inspector General of Police, that is Douglas Kanja, to appear before the court, given that he was directed to, of course, produce the 6 allegedly abducted youths. 5 of them have so far been released. And of course, we'll update you in our subsequent bulletins. Now, President John Dramani Mahama has officially assumed office as Ghana's leader, marking his return to the presidency after previously serving from 2012 to 2017. President Mahama was sworn in on Tuesday in a ceremony held at the Black Star Square in Accra. President William Ruto is among 21 heads of state and government officials who attended the inauguration.
In his inaugural address, President John Dramani Mahama outlined his vision for Ghana's economic revival, inclusivity and governance reforms. He emphasized accountability, innovation and unity, calling on Ghanaians to join him in a national reset to build a more prosperous and resilient country.
We need to strengthen our ties with our neighbors to ensure that we're working together to keep our sub-region safe. We stand in solidarity and work in alliance with all our neighbors in the sub-region.
Let me be the first.
Mahama, who started his political career as the communications minister, won the presidential election in December last year after pledging to tackle the economic crisis, corruption and unemployment.
Today should mark the beginning of a new opportunity. An opportunity for us to make a difference in our governance and our economic management. We shall reset our dear nation, Ghana.
After his inaugural speech, Mahama received congratulatory greetings from heads of states and governments,
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
including President William Ruto, who was flanked by Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi. 65-year-old Mahama, who was previously Ghana's president between July 2012 and January 2017, succeeds President Nana Akufo-Addo.
Let me be the first.
Let's come back here to the country where at least 1,500 children in Murang'a County will benefit from bursary funds amounting to 6 million shillings courtesy of Nduti Tea Factory. Each student drawn from tea growing zones in the region will receive 4,000 shillings in a move aimed at easing the financial burden on parents. Details of this and other stories is in our county's news roundup.
During the issuance of the bursary checks, the parents expressed their gratitude to the management of the Nduti Tea Factory for investing in their children's education.
In terms of fertilizer, of course, we continue to ask the government to give subsidies because it is a big chunk of the farmers' money that goes into buying fertilizer. When the farmer produces more because they have fertilizer, the country gains in terms of getting more foreign exchange. So we all are going to gain in the fact that the government continues to give us the subsidy, the money to subsidize the cost of the fertilizer.
Elsewhere, parents drawn from the Kuria community in Migori County have been challenged to take an active role in educating girls on the effects of female genital mutilation.
The fate of these girls after circumcision is unpredictable. It is something that we have to come back to the tables and consider how we are going to do it again, because they have been pushed back again to what they had overcome.
Kifika mahali akishafanyiwa FGM anaenda, mzazi anashindwa atafanya nini? Lakini wazazi tukumbuke kwamba sisi ndio hufanya hawa watoto wanakosa kuendelea na shule. Na sio kwamba ni watoto wasichana pekee, hata watoto vijana.
And members of Siaya County Assembly have been urged to urgently pass the pending Widows Protection Bill. Game West member of County Assembly Susan Okwiri says if enacted, the law will give widows in the county a chance to fully enjoy their rights.
We want the widows of Siaya at least to have something. We want the bill to go through so that they can have their rights, we can check on their welfare, and we can give them a lot of things so that they be stable and live like any other person.
Finally, in Homa Bay, county environmentalists in the region hosted a tree planting event at the Raila Amolo Odinga Stadium to celebrate the birthday of former Prime Minister Raila Odinga.
As we mark the birthday of Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, let each and every one of us plant at least a tree.
Now let's take a look at what is happening in the world of business. A tea levy is set to be introduced next month to raise cash to fund marketing of Kenyan tea in the international market. Tea Board of Kenya Chief Executive Officer William Mutai says the tea levy will be capped at 1% of the total sales.
The Tea Board of Kenya is finalizing stakeholder participation into proposals to introduce the tea levy to be charged on total sales. Some farmers and value chain players are opposed to introduction of the levy, arguing that it will eat into their earnings. However, supporters led by the Tea Board of Kenya say the tea levy is necessary to fully operationalize the Tea Act as well as fund the marketing of Kenyan tea globally.
If we push the average price for the country to be $3.2, the levies will go up to 2.8 billion. If we don't push, the levies will still remain at below 1 billion. So the more we put a push for the price earning, the more we'll get the levies. So, and that's also the industry will appreciate. They will not feel the pain.
If adopted, the tea levy is likely to come into effect as soon as next month.
It should be operationalized by this month because what's only remaining is the industry to accept. I think the only remaining people are now the people in the trade.
Mutai has underscored the need to enhance marketing of Kenyan tea as a way to drive up demand and prices.
And again, that will allow us to really expand our market, to use the same levies with the industry, because we assume or we know that the board that will be running Tea Board of Kenya will come from the stakeholders.
Enforcement of quality standards for green leaf being picked is being stepped up to address cases of unsold tea at the Mombasa tea auction. 7
regulations. One is the green leaf guidelines, which is under public participation, and the stakeholders have agreed the minimum leaf that can be pushed or used at the respective factory that can be manufactured.
Meanwhile, Shimoni Fish Port is on course for completion by March this year. Deputy President Professor Kithure Kindiki says that the 2.6 billion shillings Shimoni Fish Port encompasses a modern jetty fish landing site, warehouse, a fish processing plant, a cold storage and other support amenities.
The government targets to expand the contribution of the blue economy value chain to the country's gross domestic product from the current 37 billion Kenya shillings to 150 billion shillings by the year 2027. Part of the efforts to facilitate this involves facilitating the fisher folk to acquire modern fishing boats and gear for deep sea fishing.
The other interventions, of course, the other fish ports which we are constructing in other parts along the coastline, and also on the Lake Victoria blue economy ecosystem. We are also investing in so many other initiatives.
Shimoni Fish Port, whose construction is scheduled to be completed in March this year, is expected to create jobs and enhance household incomes.
This is a program, a project which speaks to the commitment of this government to improve the livelihoods of the people of Kenya, to empower communities, to create jobs for young people.
Ile kitu ambayo nataka ni kuhakikishie na nihakikishie viongozi wa Kwale ni kwamba hayo maagizo ambayo mumepeana yatakamilishwa bila wasiwasi, bila tashwishi.
Tumengoja sana Shimoni Fish Port ikamilike ili vijana waweze kuingia hapa, na tunashukuru pia kupitia Wizara ya Miti kampuni nyingi sasa zimeendelea kuingia Kwale.
Professor Kindiki made the remarks when he toured and assessed the progress of the ongoing construction works of the Shimoni Fish Port.
And now finally, let's play. Outgoing Cabinet Secretary for Youth Affairs, Creative Economy and Sports, Kipchumba Murkomen, has officially handed over the ministry to the incoming CS, Salim Mvurya, who immediately embarked on the task ahead of ensuring that the stadiums earmarked for the next month's African Nations Championships are ready to host the tournament as per the CAF deadline. Our sports reporter Daniel Mwendwa has the details.
Early Tuesday morning, the new Cabinet Secretary, Salim Mvurya, accompanied by the outgoing Cabinet Secretary, Kipchumba Murkomen, toured the Kasarani Stadium to inspect the ongoing renovations ahead of the 2024 CHAN, slated for February. After the Kasarani inspection, they headed to Nyayo National Stadium to make sure that the ongoing works are also on track. They eventually ended up at the Talanta Plaza for the official handover, where the incoming Sports Cabinet Secretary, Salim Mvurya, noted that the renovations were going on well, with the constructors working tirelessly to beat the deadlines.
I will work with all of you in your different portfolios to ensure that I provide the necessary leadership support to realize the mandate and the responsibilities that you have in your different portfolios.
Outgoing sports CS, who is now the Ministry of Interior, Kipchumba Murkomen, added that the government will be working closely with federations to ensure that they promote all sports in the country and not just upcoming events.
I have always taken the view that it is better to consult, make the decision, let historians judge whether that decision was good or not.
The African Nations Championship will be co-hosted by Kenya, Uganda and Tanzania from 1st to 28th of February, with the draw set to be conducted next week on Wednesday at the Kenyatta International Convention Center in Nairobi.
Elsewhere, 3 FKF Kenya Premier League matches have been postponed from this weekend until the 22nd of this month, as per the FKF Premier League makes a return from the holiday break. KCB versus AFC Leopards, Gor Mahia versus Sofapaka and Kenya Police against Bandari are the matches that have been pushed forward.
Posta Rangers will host City Stars at the Kenyatta Stadium in the double-header on Saturday as Kenya's top flight makes a return after the holiday break. The game will precede the match between Talanta and Kakamega Homeboys on a day that will see a total of 3 matches being played. The other game will be played at Gusii Stadium between hosts Shabana and Tusker FC. With 3 matches postponed this weekend, Sunday will have a fixture card of only 3 matches. Ulinzi Stars will host Mara Sugar at the Dandora Stadium in the opening game on Sunday, kicking off before the game between Mathare United and Kariobangi Sharks. Sunday's third game will be played at the Kenyatta Stadium in Machakos between Bidco United and Murang'a Seal. KCB, who are scheduled to open match day 16 on Friday against AFC Leopards, will not be in action this weekend as it is one of the games that have been moved to the 22nd of this month. The other matches moved forward are between Gor Mahia and Sofapaka and Kenya Police against Bandari FC.